Okay, kit review time. What have we got? We've got something we've been waiting for a long time. Now, this is the Airfix 1/24 scale. Yep, that's right, 1/24. Hawker Typhoon. This is the Mk1b. Now, bit of a backstory on this. Airfix have released some stuff in 1/24 before. The Mosquito, I think, obviously from a new generation. Everyone got quite excited about it and started to jump up and down about a large scale Mosquito. And then I think a lot of people suddenly thought, yeah, but that's going to be huge, where are we going to put it? And I call these type of models what I call dining room table models, because that's where they're going to spend 90% of the time. And then they're going to get pushed out of the way come Christmas or any time you have a meal. Because quite frankly, no display cabinet I know of will ever fit one of these types of things in it. Anyway, next thing you know, it sort of went down, and a few were built, but not many, I think, going around the show circuit, things like that. And certainly when they said doing a 1/24 scale Typhoon, everybody immediately thought it was the new Typhoon and everything else. There's in the Eurofighter. And then obviously a lot of people thought, hold on, 1/24 scale, it just doesn't make any sense. And then quickly it came out, it was going to be the Hawker Typhoon in 1/24. Now, this particular kit, or aircraft I should say, has been around in other forms over the years, but nothing, you know, it's been superseded really and bypassed a lot by the Spitfire, obviously, things like that. But it's a cracking aircraft, okay. Now, the big thing with this particular one as well is that it's what I call Airfix's new generation of obviously extremely well designed, CAD designed and everything else like this. So immediately your sort of ears prick up, right, it's going to be large scale, means it's going to be pretty well detailed by Airfix's standard these days. So, you know, when we're going to see it. And then it went quiet, okay, and then luckily enough for IPMS, the Nationals, at Telford last year, we got a glimpse of this thing in the flesh for the first time. Everyone got really excited about it. They had a couple of the pre-production shots made up in various stages so we could see all the detail and everything else like that. And obviously lots of pictures of the sprues and things, and everyone got very excited. Obviously the price was being poked around back then, and they were quoting around about £80, and I think obviously realistically we knew it was never going to be 80 quid. I bought this particular one from Airfix Direct on Friday on its release, and I paid £99.99p free shipping. It's quite a large lump, so that's not too bad at all, and everything else like that. But as I said, it's not a cheap kit, but it's what I call a big, you know, sort of kit that you're going to take a while with. The aftermarket guys no doubt will be jumping on this one as well, so I think it'll be one of those builds you do over a while, and it's going to be your showpiece post. So, but anyway, that's enough of the waffling on about it. As I say, got released on Friday. Here we are Monday. It turned up as good as Airfix said it would be, next day delivery, so Monday for me and everything else like that. So if we have a look around the old box, as you can see, looking down, great artwork, as you say, amazing artwork that Airfix have done recently. Lovely weathered aircraft. Okay, I don't think it'd ever fly that low in its life, but certainly it looks the part. Little symbol down here we've got for the D-Day, obviously the 70th anniversary, so we've got the 70th anniversary logo down here. Some of the markings you can imagine. So quick run round of the box. We have, as you can see down here, working across, we've got some of the aircraft with the markings. We'll talk about those in depth at the moment. Okay, and on the back we've got, which is quite a nice touch again, some of the actual aircraft and obviously some of this CAD type stuff, as you can see down here. These are the sort of things we saw at the show, but as you can see on the close-up there, we've got some nice CAD work giving you an idea of what you're going to get right out of the box. And then if I just slowly pan around here, we've got some build-up models that have obviously been built, okay, and in the markings that you get out of the box. Okay, so we're talking of which, we'll just go through them here. We've got here DN252 Zulu Yankee November 247 Squadron. These are all obviously going to be around the D-Day markings, as you can imagine. So they're all going to be sort of 1944, 1945 type things. Okay, so down on here, as you can see, we've got 440 Squadron, Canadian Air Force. Okay, and then over on the other side, I need a bigger desk. We got two more over here. Who have we got down here? Which squadron is this one? 212 Squadron, okay, 1944, and then down here we've got, who's this squadron? 245 Squadron, okay, down in there, and it's got a shark's mouth. Don't like the banding, but I love the shark's mouth. All right, so you can see it's a little bit different having down here. Obviously, we've got some things about obviously the operations it was used and the bases it was on and everything else like that. As you can see, we are still sealed. Okay, none of the seals have been undone yet, so I actually haven't been in here. So without further ado, let's have a look to see what we get in the box. Okay, so in the box we get, off with the lid. Get in the lid. Okay, pop it down there. I won't put it down there because it's going to obscure your view. Okay, very loosely packed. If we're honest, extremely loosely packed. I'm used to sort of Far East kits now. They tend to do a little bit more with them. So certainly you get things like obviously bracing and packaging and stuff like that. It's quite floppy, but the bag's pretty much chucked in here. So you've got quite a stuffed full bags in here, as you can imagine. So if we just do this, it's going to wiggle that camera around just a little bit. All right, so we have a look for the instructions first and work our way through our usual way of doing things. Bags are all stuck to each other, or everything else. I'm not going to rip anything apart here, but we're going to cut this guy off. Okay, so what do we got? We have, this is all pretty well stuck together here. Where's my knife gone? I've lost my knife. Good start, here we go. So, in one. Okay, so decals we'll look at in a moment. We have here, in this little guy here, technically a book. So if we just peel our way in through some of these layers and we can get into this, we'll be alright. Okay, so what do we got? Members Club, we know all about that. Okay, what we have here is a proper instruction manual. Okay, so again, we're moving on. Obviously, we've got the usual thing you would get. Obviously, a little bit of history, specifications of the real aircraft, everything else like that. And then what we actually have, it's very, very thick. Okay, it's not your usual Airfix, you know, 60 GSM paper. Okay, so if I play around with some camera views just to get you all in and on with this. Okay, so what we got down here, we're talking about the options. So obviously we can have options to have it with the cowls and obviously all the engines showing, the armament section showing, things like that. Option 2, you can have just the top of the engine showing, obviously armament in there. Obviously you can play around with all of these. Option 3, closed up completely. Okay, this is going to be in different languages. I've just tweaked why it's all like that. Okay, so we're going to work our way through and have a run through the actual instructions, and then obviously we can take it from there. So making sure you're all still in frame and everything else, because we've camera views everywhere. You're going to get a lot with this particular kit. Obviously I've seen just the CAD views like everybody else, and I've seen them at Telford. So this is the first time of looking through here, so I do apologise if I make bad call outs and things. But anyway, looking at this structural work, we do have a lot of structural work going down here. We're talking a lot about angles and that, which is a nice touch. Okay, so we've got a lot of the framework for the engine mounts and obviously the cockpit, the wing spars, big old wing spars going through here. Again, a very nice touch. And it's nice to have these overhead views as well, just so for your peace of mind, you can look at it and say, okay, well, I think we're at the right angles, we've got them all in the right place. Okay, and working our way through. So it's quite complex in here, but the instructions are pretty good. They're very nicely laid out, showing you exactly how it's all going to go. And then obviously we've got down here, I presume this is the underside where the rudder pedals go on. Engine mounts and things like that going in there. Or is that the rear cockpit? It's hard to tell at this point. I think it might be the rear actually. Section going in. And then as you can see, lots of this framework going in, which is going to make up a lot of detail. It's going to be one of these aircraft which unfortunately you're going to lose a lot of this detail as it goes in. But as you can see, the seat going together, nice colour work on this seat as well, so you can see exactly how it goes in. Talking about your distances, 2.2 mil, you know, really? Does it have to be that accurate? Okay, so we've got the armour bulkhead even behind the cockpit. As you can see, it's a complex piece that actually goes in and onto the framework. So immediately we're looking at this as in the detail is going to be there. Okay, I don't think the aftermarket people are going to have much work in here if this all goes together correctly. Talking about harnesses, obviously if you've got your pilot figure you don't have to, things like that, so they're going to go in there. The cockpit, obviously with the panels, the controls, things like that, all being installed into this gorgeous framework. Okay, and making your way through. Okay, control column and the throttle system going in, the seat cushion. The pilot looks horrible, if I'm honest, looks like a two-part old one. Okay, talking about how the seat position is and things like that going in there. The actual pilot, so you can put his hands on the controls, so obviously you put your arms in afterwards if you're going to have him in some type of in-cockpit display. Okay, and you've got the bottles, the things, the instrument panel, two-part instrument panel. There's no sign of decals in there at all, so I don't know how that's going to work. Okay, in fact I'm just wondering, I'm presuming R2 is going to be a glass part, so we've got nothing in there at all. A little bit odd. Okay, we'll look at that more in detail in a moment. More framework going in. Then we're moving on to this engine. Now the engine is one of those ones that looked absolutely stunning at the show. So looking at this, putting it all together, as you can imagine, it's all going in. You've even putting in, unbelievably, the hose lines and everything else. Now, are we talking this has got a motor in here or something? It is. It's actually got a motor. Now, does the motor come with a kit? Again, I'm going to have to check this. You might notice all my reviews, I don't go out and look at other people's reviews. I try and do it as much as I can, a bit like my films. I don't like to watch other people's reviews. I like to go and see a film and I'll merit off my own merit rather than anyone else. So excuse me if it has, and everyone's going to say, well, I told you it had a motor in it. Anyone knows that, but it looks like you've got a motor going in here. Into this block of the engine, all the details going on, the superchargers and everything else like that. Then this engine being mounted in. Then you're going to be putting all this plumbing in, which is nice because it's separate, showing you from the different angles how it all goes in. Okay, and all the way through. So that's a very nice touch. So although it's completely very complex in there, I keep meaning to get two sheets apart. It's not, it's that thick. Okay. Again, as you can see, all these parts going in there, all these little bits going all round to make you up a stunning looking engine all the way through that. Really, really nice. Okay, then we've got the actual air scoop coming up, the supercharger underneath. Talking about the distances, it's going to be 30.7 mil, really? Okay, 90 degrees I can go with. I'm putting all these different parts in, talking about obviously different types going into these and all the way through. Opening up the holes, again, funny sizes on these things all the way through. If you're going to have the motor cable installed where the cable needs to come out, and all the way through like that. Obviously if you gear up and down and all the way in, I suppose we've got a motor on, it'd be great to have it in flight. Horrible, those blurred props, never worked for me at all. Okay, more framework going into the inside, so you've got the wing spars and things like that going into the wing. We saw that in the CAD work and certainly for the test shots as well. It is a lovely looking thing. Okay, all of these going through, as you can imagine, very, very nicely done. The guns itself is talking about drilling out the ends of them, which is a real shame you have to do that, I must admit. Would have liked to have seen it opened up. Talking about these guns being fitted into them, obviously the ammo boxes, things like that, gives you a great level of detail. We've even got to build the fuel tanks for the fuel tanks and the wing system to go in there. Even more sparring and ribbing for the insides of the tops of the wings, if you like, how they're going to fit in, for the wheel wells even. And then we're putting onto the wingtips. It looks extremely complex. Okay, and it's talking about here of not putting the internal in of those. Perhaps you pop them in afterwards. Okay, going right the way through. We're getting little bits here with different variants. I'm wondering if other variants are going to be coming along. It's a shame we never saw it with certainly the Mosquito. Okay, so now we're to the point where you've done all that beautiful work. It looks stunning, it looks amazing, and now you're going to cover it up so nobody will ever see it, which really seems a shame. But then I'm not a fan of those clear fuselages. To me, they are horrible as well. So, you know, I don't know. Buy two. There's my plan for this. Buy two. One as a frame, complete skinless one. Okay, and then do one as, you know, obviously all done up in flight with the prop running. Brilliant. Okay, so we're talking about obviously the various bits going on in here to cover up all this gorgeous work. So you've got the sides of the fuselage halves. So after you've done all of that, it just closes it all up. Okay, and then going in. Okay, and then usual thing, split on the thing, but I presume it's going to be following a panel line, so that's not too bad. You can do a quick rescribe of those. I'm hoping these exhaust stacks are all hollowed out, which would be a nice touch, because it looks like they're single pieces. Okay, running right the way through, all looking good. Talking about gluing the top on and the back in, and everything else like that. That's all pretty good. Talking about having the actual radiator doors open as you're making your way through. Okay, control surfaces, they are not movable, although it says here, obviously this tab must move a little bit. Okay, so you can have positionable control surfaces, as well as positionable trim tabs, as well as positional rudders, which is a nice touch. Talking about having those ammo doors open on the wings we saw earlier, a little bit more detail going into the wheel well, so we've got some hydraulic lines, brake lines, things like that all being fitted in here. You know, obviously the I don't know if they're nitrogen bottles or whatever they are in those. Okay, hydraulic lines all going in, the gear itself, be interesting to see what the gear is. Okay, and going through, we've got weight on wheels by the looks of it, which is a nice touch. Bulged weight on wheels as well. Okay, all the way through, doors going in, obviously tail wheel up and down as you'd expect. Different degrees, so you've got 18.3 degrees or 19 degrees. I'd like to see who gets that correct. Okay, and obviously you can put the flaps up. Just noting what these parts are, looking very nice. So we've got the inside of the door, how you're actually going to have it. Or sorry, the inside of the panel on the side. So this goes up to the front. Funny way of doing it all. Let's say it all looks very good. Weaponry, as you can imagine, drop tanks, rockets, and obviously freefall bombs going in. Talking about the prop now, so it's talking about how the prop's going to go in. I assume it's just one position fits all in there. Then you've obviously just got your step for getting on board, things like that. A couple of the aerials showing that they're slanted. Okay, position stencil data. So we do have decals for all the instrument dials, as I thought you'd do, although it doesn't mention it in the instructions. Doing the pilot, stencil data positions, and then we've got a little bit about each of the aircraft and the markings it's in, which is quite a nice touch. Okay, I'm working our way through, showing the positions of them all in there. So I have to say, I do like the book. It's beautifully presented. It's very simple to follow because it is quite complex the way we're going to actually do it. So there we go. Decals, whilst we've got them here, their sticky tape is brilliant. You can't open anything with it. Okay, so we get a large sheet which isn't stuck on. Okay, so we're looking, actually, if we have a closer look at some of these roundels, as you can see, pretty good. Now, my big thing I was kicking off with Airfix was that it was far too flat. They're still too flat, but they're not as flat as they have been. As in, I'm talking about satin gloss and flat, okay? Because actually, that doesn't look too bad at all. Pretty much a nice flat finish. Okay, perhaps some of these are a little bit flatter than I would like. The shark's teeth, but it's not a large, if we look at these, you can see it's not like a large carrier film. It's very, very closely cut. Okay, these over here, yes, all right, you've got it down here, but the actual carrier film side of things is right up on the edge. We're probably talking 1/4 of a mil all the way around, which is a very nice touch. So we haven't got a big sheet of carrier film, because obviously the bigger the decal, the more carrier film you've got, the more it stands out. That's not bad at all. Yeah, we can go with that. Looking at obviously all the close-ups, as you can see them down here, you can see all this stencil data. It's all totally readable, but then you would imagine at this scale it should be. Okay, I can't see any errors. All right, some of these dials could be better, but then aftermarket, there's plenty of that around if you wanted to do that. Not bad at all. Quite like those. I'm just going to pop these back in because we don't want to damage them. Okay, so where do we start? Let's have a look at the fuselage first. Now, has Rosetta the Riveter been let loose on this thing? Okay, so what you've actually got here is quite a nice mixture of raised and recessed detail all in one that is extremely close. For instance, this section down the back here, if I try and bring that other camera right in, all right. Okay, as you can see, this guy down the back here, you've got a row of rivets, but also you've got a row in between, which is raised. That's very clever because you've actually got The lower part is recessed and the uppers are raised. This paneling as well is actually raised by a very small amount. It's not like it's right on top, but this one's raised, okay? This one's raised, this one is then sunk on this side. Clever, clever little details. This riveting down here, it's on a raised plate, but it is very, very small. It's not a chunky item. These rivets all running down here seem to be all exactly the same height. And don't forget, we are talking here 1/24, so it doesn't look like it's too big. It probably would be just like this. Okay, but again, these little guys here, you've got obviously recessed riveting, and this along the top here is all raised. So very, very nicely done. I've got a little bit which looks like it's a sink mark, but it's not. It's actually stressed skin. I'm hoping the camera is getting that. That's actually a stressed skin bump in between these panels. And I know it's not a sink mark because there's nothing on the back, so it's got to be deliberate. And if it is, it's something we spoke about in a recent review when I said about them not having, you know, having sink marks you could use as, you know, stressed skin. This guy has got it all the way around here, which I think probably is going to make this an absolute stunner, because when you run your finger over it you can feel the bump and it feels like stressed skin. It looks like it in the raw of the plastic. Okay, now the plastic itself is typical Airfix, very soft, very thick, heavy plastic. Okay, it's not light and crisp like you'll get with the Japanese kits or obviously the Far East kits. This tends to be Airfix bread and butter, i.e. it's very thick, you know, it's quite strong, but it's very soft, all right? But the detail is all exactly in. And little things like down here, you can see we've got this stress. These are the actual reinforcers for the tail. You know, I'm no expert on this at all, but the one thing I do know is this aircraft was plagued by its tail falling off during its early years. So they strengthened up the tail by putting these extra joins on here, and it cured the problem, and it turned into one of the finest ground attack aircraft of World War II. But as I say, it's nicely done. There are different shapes on there. The riveting, all this riveting detail down here is absolutely exquisite. And I know I'm hanging around here on frame M, but it is quite a nice touch. Do like that. Obviously for the inside you're not going to see any of this, but it has got ribbing and it has got ejector pins, so, and I don't think you're going to see it for a moment, but if you did, perhaps these down here could be a little annoying if you're really going to be a rivet counter about it. But generally my first impressions of that little bit of sprue is absolutely fantastic, and I love that stressed skin. I'm hoping the camera can actually get it because it actually works really well. There we go, you see that? That's what we're talking. We've got the angle just here, so you're actually looking at these bumps all down here, okay, and it gives you that look of stressed skin, which is great to see on aircraft. Okay, 10 minutes to talk about one wing. Okay, so loads of rivets as you can imagine, but again I am loving stressed skin, and it's got tons of it galore all down here on the bottom. You can see all that, all these lumps in between. All this stressed skin, absolutely love it. First time I've seen it on any kit, and it's amazing. I was only talking about it the other day in another review, saying wouldn't it be great if they did stress skin? But there we go, it actually has it. But hopefully you can see it's a very nice piece. If I just drop this top camera down just a little bit, there we go. But as you can see, it's a nice piece. There's no problems with that at all. It's a little bit flashy, going back to the basics. Tiny bits of flash all over it. It's going to need a little bit of cleanup. You can see it all around here and everything else, but to be honest, it's that bigger kit, you know, it's swipe with a sanding stick, you're not going to make any difference to it at all. Okay, so we got that. Then we've got two of these which are in one giant bag welded together, which, okay, so it's one bag, two halves. Got ya. Again, as you can see, it's very soft plastic. All right. Okay, looking down some of the details on this. Obviously, we've got the drop tanks. To be honest, I thought you'd have more detail on that. And to be honest, the raised detail is a little bit wobbly as it comes down. Okay. For instance, these rails are pretty much something and nothing. You've got a little bit of riveting detail going down them, but obviously I don't know much rails have in real life. Now the free-fill bonds, again, quite softly moulded. Nothing you would sort of go running about, certainly, but it's not too bad at all. Moving down across, we've got the fuel tanks. So again, pretty softly moulded. The thing that worries me about when you go large scale, all of a sudden it loses its sharpness and it becomes almost like a kid's toy. Okay, so you get into that situation where the Space Shuttle had it especially. If you go back and watch my review and the video build I did on the Space Shuttle, it's so big, it's very hard to work with because everything's a giant. It's almost like, you know, it's sort of Playmobil rather than it, and it's just got that sort of look to it. We got a little bit of sinkage, as you can see down here in the props, things like that. Okay, we've got two different types of spinner, so you can probably see here on the close-up. Hopefully it's not a close-up, but you got one a lot more pointy than the other. All right, and you got another one over there which is even more pointy. So you've got three types of noses running down here. I didn't see that in the instructions, so it might be for different variants. Flipping it over, ejector pins, obviously on this scale you're going to expect to have them, but certainly we've got more details going on down here as we work our way through. But again, not quite as flashy, that particular sprue. Now the other one, which is the rockets and all the details like this, okay, you can see, so we've got some bombs, you've got the actual, the pylons themselves, working it really round, you've got the sway braces, you can see some of those rockets here as we're having a look as we're making our way around. The other side of the rails, which were, to be honest, aren't too bad at all, okay, and it's just rocket after rocket after rocket, and they're in two halves, so they might be a little bit of a pain to get together, but generally don't look too bad. Okay, again, it's big, very, very big. Okay, tops of the wings. So again, okay, always check your bag to make sure you've got no little bits in. Okay, top of this wing. So again, I'm now in love with this kit totally because it's the little things I love. Again, stressed skin all over this guy. So hopefully, there you go, look at that, lovely detail right across the top here. Okay, yes Airfix, I am eating humble pie now because I was your biggest critic for years. Now I love you guys. Okay, underneath, as you can see, it's pretty soft and everything else like that. This wing is extremely soft, just hope it all lines up okay. Some of the details, perhaps like this guy here, it's a little bit softly moulded, might want it a little bit more crisp than that, but certainly as you're working your way right the way through, very, very nicely detailed. All the riveting, there's none of it that just disappears off like you find on a trumpeter kit, or certainly the old trumpeter kits. It's all very sharp, all very neatly grouped and everything else like that. Not much flash on this one at all, perhaps a tiny little bit, you can see it just on that edge, just under there, don't know, a little bit, I think there's a little bit of flash in there, but generally pretty good. This could be a long review. In fact, scrub the news show, it's going to be called Typhoon Review. Good job I've got my new internet speed. Okay, now I'm not going to keep banging on about it, but I'm going to. Look at the stress skin on the bottom of that, absolutely lovely, and on the, that's a good view, you can see it all down here, lovely little touch. Now I won't keep going on about stress skin. That's the other side, obviously you've got those reinforcement plates going in, so I'm assuming this is the gun doors, things like that, as we work our way across. Again, as you can see, really, really nice detail all the way through, some good heavy moulding going into all these areas, stress skin, just saying. Okay, all the way in there, really like that. Then you've got the little details on the inside, obviously, so you've got all these little bits going on in here. Look, there's no, well you have actually, okay, I'm lying, this side you can't see an ejector pin, this side you can. I've got a very faint one there, but I wouldn't even go near it because you've got this detail all around it, so it's a shame they're there, but they're very, very faint. Okay, and then these guys over here, again, you've got no ejector pin marks, but lovely detail down on the inside of these, because let's face it, all they are is armament doors. Okay, but they're all good, so very, very nicely done. Okay, tailplanes, which obviously look like the size of aircraft. Okay, as you can see, again, beautifully done, no problems at all. Okay, and then what we've got here, we've actually got the ribbing set. This is the inner of the actual wheel wells, so as you can see, by the time those extra frames go in there, it will make up something really, really nice. We've got the geared doors, again, looking beautiful in one piece. Obviously I presume we cut it in two, probably cut along the line. Not much going on the inside, unfortunately, and you've got a couple of ejector pins. I assume you might get an open and shut door. The actual tail unit itself, again, stressed skin, but beautifully done. Can't see any problems with that at all. Really does look like a fine piece of work there. Right, okay, how have they done this? How have they done this? Why have we got two tails? Right, okay, things are starting to go a little bit wild because we've actually got in here, we've got this one here, okay, which is obviously a set of rockets and a little bit of framing, but we've got a zillion rockets over there, so we've got some more, but also we've got more tails. So a little bit odd, but we've got another tail unit here. This one is, well, it looks the same to me. But there we go. Alright, control surfaces, stress skinned all over again, beautifully done. Okay, the control surfaces themselves, alright, okay, going to get a little bit picky now, only because I need to balance up this review. But basically, that's a little bit soft for me. I would have liked to have seen sharper riveting detail. It's just a little bit softly moulded on all of them, if we're honest. The other ones were far, far nicer on the actual fuselage. Okay. All of those parts you're not going to see the insides of. We've got a little bit of inner framing around the cockpit area, things like that. The harnesses are moulded one-piece plastic, as you can see, which isn't brilliant, but if you're not a fan of photo etch, bending them all around and that, obviously they'll be quite suffice the problem. Okay, so those doors obviously are one-piece closed doors. In here we've got two-piece doors, which makes sense. So in here, and if you're ever wondering where your 100 quid goes, it's probably gone on oil to make these things. So, okay, what we got down here is those doors. As you can see, these are the open position doors. So you've got the inner part, which are these guys, these are the outer parts. So they will sandwich together, so you don't worry about the detail, but you have got raised riveting all the way around the outside, so that will marry onto it and look absolutely lovely. We've got the intake scoop, which does have, which is a bit of a shame, a couple of ejector pin marks in there. I'm not sure how much you would see. Okay, generally all the piping and stuff like that, okay, got a little bit of you know, the actual burring where they're together, but not much at all, won't worry about that. Going through, so we've got this riveting and grid detail, quite a nice touch and everything else. All the hoses, hydraulic lines, all these bits and pieces, as you can see, as we're running right the way around with them all. Okay, absolutely exquisitely done, plenty going on, and it's nice that they're just sort of coiled up and stuff. Okay, it saves them to do it all with a lead wire. Okay, alright, again, we can be a little bit picky. Perhaps this is a little bit softly moulded. Would have been nicer to see that a little bit sharper. Maybe a photo etch one, something like that would be a nice touch after that. And it's the same with these suspension travelers as well. They're just a little bit softly moulded. Would like to see them a little bit sharper. But again, these sort of, you know, hoses and wiring looms, things like that, there's a little bit of flash to them, but not much, not that you'd ever get excited about. Okay, and everything else. Now we're moving into engine territory. Okay, so we'll start with a good bit, the cylinder block itself. Again, it's just a little bit softly moulded and things like that. Those exhaust stacks we were talking about, I hope that's nothing important falling off. Double check it, go in the box anyway. But these exhaust stacks, as you can see in here, they are not hollow, so you're going to have to drill them out if you want to. Okay, wheels themselves, weighted wheels, again just a little bit soft, and I don't know if you can see it just down in here, got a little sink mark in there. Okay, again, it's being picky, but it's good everywhere else, and it is a £100 kit, so I can be picky. Okay, so looking across, as you can see, we've got some of this detail, pretty good, all of it. Supercharged down here, going in there. Okay, so we've got some details in here as well, again pretty good all the way over. We've got obviously the fuel injection lines, things like that going down in these. Quite nice touch as we make our way around the sprue. Again, pretty good stuff. Okay, which end do you open here? So, control surfaces, again, and we've got, did it have closed ones? Just checking here. As you can see, looking at all the sort of control surfaces, you make your way around them, all pretty good, as we'd expect. Stress skin and that's we're getting bored with now. But everything else, these are the details which are going to go in the wheel wells. Again, a little bit soft, you might just want to re-drill them out just to sharpen them up a little bit. The exhaust stack as well, obviously it's not a seam line running down the middle, it should have one, it's how it's made, okay? So don't sort of start sanding this seam out because it actually needs that. Okay, then you've got the shrouds over them as well. Just generally little things that are slightly annoying, like, you know, we've got ejector pin marks inside the flap system. Obviously you've got the flaps deployed, you're going to see this, so you're going to need to take care of those. It's a shame they're in there, okay, but generally not too bad at all. All the ejector pins everywhere else are all pretty flattened down and everything else like that. Making my way through. Okay, some of the wing internal details. Okay, so we've actually got here, if we come across, this is for the wing section, and I'm guessing, you know, these are large ejector pin marks. Alright, you're going to cover it up and not see it, it's just annoying they're in there. And even this one here, we've got a flashy ejector pin, you know, it's got a little bit of plastic on it and things like that. Okay, but I know I'm being picky now, but, you know, as you say, prerogative. Right the way through, again, we've got the harnesses, things like that, nice little touch. Nice little details down inside these as well, with the wiring and the raised riveting. So to say, this is raised riveting and a mixture of raised and recessed. Going through, again, pretty weak is these guns, because you can see on that shot, that's not just the angle, they are literally that bent. So, you know, they're a little bit, as I say, it's the trouble with this soft plastic. Perhaps aftermarket guys will come in with a nice brass one of those, that'd be a nice touch all the way through. But again, it's not being picky, it's just a shame. They're a little bit weak, they're a little bit, again, same with these bullets on the tray, you know, because of its scale, I'd expect a little bit more detail if we're honest. And you are paying 100 quid for it, so if you line it up against, you know, the only thing I can compare it to is sort of Tamiya's, Corsairs, Spitfires and Mustangs. You know, obviously I don't know how the build quality is going to be. Okay. So down in here, now this is all our framing for the actual main part. So as you can see, we're looking at flash and things like that. There is a little bit around it. It's going to need a little bit of a clean up. It's not the cleanest job in the world as you're making your way through. Got the bulkhead there, as you can see. Again, mixture of raised and recessed riveting. Again, the rudder pedals, the actual feet parts for it. Again, the actual pedals themselves, a little bit, you know, again, a bit flashy all around it, needs a little bit of clean up, things like that to take care of it. Pilot figure himself, as you can see, he's not bad, he's just a little bit boring, okay. Generally not too bad anywhere, it's pretty good all over, you know, and I know I'm being picky with it, but it's a £100 kit. Alright. Release me. Let me go. I haven't found the engine yet. Okay, it's in the motor. So again, instrument panel. We know we've got decals now to go in here, so you have the clear part they'll go onto, then push through, or you put them through the top. Okay, generally you've got the sides of the seats, and nice detail there. Again, lovely raised detail. The pilot himself, if you're into that type of thing, doesn't look too bad. Okay, so it's certainly not Captain Slow, so all right. Okay, so going through, we've got the wing spar section. As you can see, those don't look too bad at all, and we have on one side ejector pin marks. A few ejector pin marks in there again. It's a shame, but you're not going to see it. Things like the seat, quite nice, the actual way that it's fabricated. You've got lumps and bumps in the actual seat itself as it makes its way through. Okay, we're running out of parts. So your engine must be an optional extra, which I'm sure Airfix would love to sell you that. Okay, so in here, this is a nice touch, something a little bit different. Blue roll. Okay, so now immediately I can see a big problem in mine. I don't know if you guys can see it. Perhaps you can see it. If I catch it right, I can see it by the naked eye really easy, but I've got to like a dip just in here in my glass. So I don't know if you can see that wobble as I go over that line. We're talking about this line here. That's where my lump is in the canopy. You see how it goes from left to right? Everywhere else, look, not too bad. Oh, there you go. You can see it really clearly working off the line underneath. And I've got that right there. That's pretty annoying because as I took it out the pack, I could see it. It's big. So that's a bit of a pain. So if we try it from the inside, I'll tell you what it looks like when I've over-futured and you get a lump. You see that lump? Because if I go over here, nothing. Here, big lump. That's a real shame. Now, there you go, guys. This is where you'll get back to me and tell me if yours has got it or not. If mine's a one-off, then fair enough. If not, that's pretty annoying. But the clear parts are as crystal clear can be. Okay, yeah, alright, you could then go along and say they could be clearer and everything else like that, but they're not too bad at all. By the time I think they've had a dip in some clear gloss, we give them that nice sort of depth to it, they'll be fine. It's nice that they're separate bagged, especially. Okay. So in this one, wrapped in loo roll. Okay, so this is your instrument panel, obviously your main landing lights, your navigation lights, and all the other bits and pieces you can imagine. All pretty good. You've got no flash whatsoever on this sprue. Okay, pretty good. It's a little bit thick, perhaps on the lights and everything else, but they're hollow, these guys just down here, which is a nice touch. So you can actually see everything with these. So you can actually just come in then with either use an end of a bead of plastic, put the light onto it and put it in there, that way it will magnify it through, or you could just literally a couple of drops of the colour in there, alright, and all the way through. So pretty good, not too bad at all. That show you about the canopy, but if it's wound back in the open position you wouldn't notice it. It's only going to be if you've got a crewman set in it, then you'll notice there's something amiss with it. So there we go, it's £100. It's a lot of money as a kit. Okay, this is where I'm torn, okay, because it's a £100 kit. We've been waiting for this particular kit for some time now. Great expectations of it. Seen it in the flesh through the test shots, and I think what it is, immediately I was awed by its sophistication. It's the first time I've seen a kit of Airfix's name come out with a caliber kit of this intensity, as in the complexity, the detail and everything else in there. Have they got it right? I'm not too sure. It's there, but it's not Tamiya. Okay, and for the same money you can go and get yourself a Corsair or a Spitfire in 30 seconds. This is 24th, it's bigger. I think some of my problem is with it is that when you're dealing with Tamiya and the Far East companies, you're used to that level of detail, sharpness, no flash, very little ejector pin marks in the wrong place, things like that. Airfix still have those little issues that they need to sort out, because everybody else can get away now without putting an ejector pin in a flap. Okay, Airfix still do it, which is a bit of a faux pas and a bit of a stumble on their part. Is it a good kit? Obviously I don't know, I haven't built it yet. I've seen test shots of it, but there again, it'll be something where pretty rapidly I'm going to crack on with this one. To be honest, I've got 2 big builds on the go at the moment. I'm going to get them out of the way in the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to build this guy straight out of the box, and I'll report back to you of how it goes together. Do I think it's worth it? Yeah, I would do it. 100 quid, I think if you want to wait a couple of months, let the aftermarket guys jump on board. You know, the rivet counters are going to be all over this by tomorrow. As I say, I believe it was released on Friday. This is Monday. You're getting this Tuesday, fingers crossed. And I no doubt the rivet counters will all be out saying there's 10 rivets out of place and it's 3/100th of a mil too long and 3/100th of a mil too short and all the rest of it, so don't buy it. I still think it's a 1/24th scale Typhoon, okay, and this thing is going to be this big, okay, it's not going to be a small lump, it's going to be a big lump. I think do your painting right, do your weathering right on it, you will have an absolute stunning build straight out of the box. So it's a bit like when people say to me, are Tamiya kits worth it when they're 100 quid? If you're building it straight out of the box, yes, okay, because the thing is, we've done it with 1/48 scale kits before. You'll buy them and then you go and buy the cockpit, the wheel well set, okay, and then you perhaps have some aftermarket decals, okay, and things like that. By the time you've bought that and the kit, there's 100 quid, okay, so I don't see where people automatically slate a kit for being expensive. I think sometimes, you know, you buy into it and then with a little bit more lead wiring, a little bit of scratch building, things like that, you can really improve a kit without spending any more money on it. It's certainly a different kit to work with than what we're used to and everything else like that, of Airfix's caliber with all this internals. It's a shame you're going to lose it all, but there you go, that's where your hobby comes in. So you can either, you'll know it's there but nobody else will see it, or you could leave it open so people can see it. I think it's one of those kits which would lend itself really well to having two, and I know that's 200 quid then, but you could do one buttoned up so you wouldn't have to worry about it too much, okay? And then you can do the other one opened up so people can see what's inside the other one, even though you haven't built the other one inside, okay? But you know, a lot of that detail, that beautiful work with all that engine work and with the guns and everything else, you're probably going to get them on display, but certainly all that nice canopy framing, the wing spars and everything else like that, nobody's going to see it. And that is a real shame with these kits, because as I say, all that effort goes into them and then you lost it. Especially like I've built wing ones and they're beautiful works of art to see them on the bench, and then you cover it up and you're like, well, I know it's there, you know, and everything else. So there we go, I'm waffling now. I would go and get one. If you want my honest opinion, I love it. I think the stressed skin is something the hobby's been needing for a while, and as far as I'm aware, they're the first company that's jumped on with it, and to Airfix to be in the lead is absolutely lovely to see. I'm sure everybody will start doing stressed skin from now on, and everything else like that, but certainly on this type of aircraft it'll work exceptionally well. I think the weathering with it will work really, really well, and everything else to give you that classic warbird heavy look to it and everything else. So there we go, the Airfix Typhoon, 100 quid, go and get one now.